loneliness. That's the subject of a new cover story in the Harvard Business Review. Some 40% of American adults say they feel lonely.
People were spending less time with friends and more time alone, which only intensified the sense of social isolation and loneliness.
Community and connection really matters to me. It's what helps give me a sense of security and confidence. But I know that now, especially in a post-COVID world, that a lot of people feel a sense of security from being disconnected. A better way to feel engaged and connected with our neighbors is closer than we think. I got sent to Eielson Air Force Base, Alaska in March of 2002 as an information manager. It was definitely kind of isolating, moving away from like all my friends and family, like, who's gonna visit you in Alaska? It was a huge disconnection. It was probably sometime in 2003 and 2004 where I was driving along with Sergeant Barclay. She was also an information manager. We were probably going to Fairbanks somewhere and she turned on National Public Radio. When I first heard National Public Radio, I was very intrigued by the fact that NPR has like this non-biased approach to the news. So sometimes being in the military, one, we get a little bit of judgment depending on who's in power. Like, oh, you're out working for so-and-so, or this war is going on and you support this or that. But to hear the news from a perspective without that judgment, it's just like, whoa, what is this? Okay, I want to hear more about what they're talking about. I came back to Connecticut in around 2008, 2009. And for me, one of the biggest things was reconnecting with the community and giving back. I believe that my reintroduction to NPR came probably in an alarm clock like it is now. I like to wake up and hear somebody talking about what's going on in the world. For me, I like to be able to, when I am coming into work or when I get here, look at one of my students or my coworkers, hey, did you hear about what's going on with the protest or things like that? Just starting conversations, picking people's brains. And I don't know, I like waking up to hearing those conversations being had. Maybe it's knowing that people care and want to know and want to let other people know. I like the way that WSHU does that, making it feel like a community as opposed to just like, we have the news and we're bringing it to you. It feels like we're all a part of this. That's meaningful to me.
I'm Music Director Kate Remington. Can you think of another time when we've needed classical music more? I can't. Thank you for listening and for supporting WSHU. We're moving forward together.
Thank you for making this resource available to your community.
I'm WSHU Morning Edition host Tom Kuser. We continue to be your source for trusted news.
I think by nature of us being a small station, we can really just focus in on hyper-local news. And I think it's really easy for us to listen to the big networks and get easily kind of stressed out and overwhelmed by all the problems in our country and the world as well. But the things that are happening in our own communities affect us way more than stuff that's going on nationally. We're really able to do a deep dive into stories in our local community and share stories of your neighbors.
Exploring the ideas of young people might give us the best chance at survival in the face of climate change.
On Higher Ground from APM American Public Media.
It's important to listen to all different types of voices because you might have a blind spot that you weren't aware of. If you're from a rural area of Connecticut, your perspective on things might be different than a 13-year-old from Bridgeport. So when we're engaging with the community, it's just, I think the most important thing is to have as many voices heard as we possibly can. And an example of that I've been a part of is this most recent season of Higher Ground where we talk to kids about climate change.
Climate change is now a fact of life for many Americans.
But young people are going to continue to experience these changes throughout their lifetimes. I'm JD Allen.
And I'm Sabrina Garone. Join us as we put the microphone into the hands of middle school student scientists.
There is a museum down the street that does this great after-school program for kids in the Bridgeport community, and we worked with these middle schoolers on climate change projects. So over the course of a couple weeks, they were coming up with their own solutions, with their own local solutions to climate change, I should say. Gave them microphones, and it was great listening back to all that tape of them, their hilarious like banter and all these sometimes extremely profound things that they were saying.
I have the mic, so I feel like I have to be funny, I need to be comedic, humorous.
Yeah. Let's make some weather jokes.
You shouldn't rely on things like fossil fuels. We shouldn't be always reliant on things that are like killing us slowly.
Me at 13, I was thinking about like animals and save the whales and things like that. These kids are like, well, how is air quality affecting pregnant women and, water quality and the chemicals in tap water and things of that sort.
These are kids that many of whom you have to understand their backgrounds don't give them a voice. And then when you hand a child that has never been given a voice, a microphone to tell their stories, they have hours of like a couple of our kids just singing. They never heard their own voice like that before. And it was so, they're having a great time and we're over here like crying because it was so powerful. And WSHU did that for them. When I think of connection and community, there's not a better example than the WSHU Higher Ground podcast collaboration with Discovery Science Center and Planetarium. I think a lot of listeners came here after hearing that, and I think that just a small example of what they can do for communities like ours, they are so open to hearing what the community has to say. What are more connections we can make with the community? What are more ways that we can influence open, unbiased, fact-based learning for the kids? How can we teach them to read between the lines? How can we teach them to make their own decisions based on facts? It's just, what they're doing over there is fantastic. It's impressive.
WSHU is not just my preference for news. It's also my preference for radio. I feel like listening to Ibang Udama or someone just telling the story, like I don't feel the person putting their personal opinions into it. World news, it has StoryCorps, it has the classical music, it has the Wait, Don't Tell Me, just like the different facets of the radio. And it's just really my preference for listening.
I'm Suzanne Bona, inviting you to join me for Sunday Baroque this week.
I do feel a sense of pride and ownership with WSHU. I feel like a part of the family, partially because I work with students, and to be able to maybe introduce them and get them involved, get them into conversations about what's going on, and maybe get them to be interested and listen and know that their voices and input is important, and that maybe news that they want to hear or they want to share could also be a part of building that community. So to me, it's also important to bring other members of the community into it as well.
I think something people need to know about WSHU is that it's awesome and that they're on a different level, interviewing people and getting real world bites of what's happening in the actual community.
What I want people to know about NPR and WSHU is that it's for everyone, and I think in this day and age it's really easy to get overwhelmed and scared by things we see on the national media, whether that's on TV or now on social media is probably how most people are accessing news. So we're here for you. We live in this community too. The issues that affect our listeners affect us as well. You know, we're going in the same grocery stores. I've probably been someone's waitress at one time or another. So yeah, like these things really matter to us as well. We're here to make those headlines seem a little bit less scary, show you how it's affecting your local community and what you can do about it. And we can't do that unless you connect and engage with us.
That's all I got for today. I'm Sabrina Garone. Have a great rest of your evening. We'll talk tomorrow.
Us. We're everywhere you are at WSHU.org, on your radio at 91.1 FM and 89.9 FM, on the WSHU Public Radio app and your smart speaker.